In a quiet, sun-drenched corner of the world, nestled among rolling green hills, lay a small, cheerful village. Life here was simple, guided by the rising and setting of the sun and the rhythm of the seasons. At the very heart of this village, in the center of the main square, stood a magnificent, ancient mango tree. This wasn't just any tree, it was the soul of the village, a silent, steadfast guardian that had watched over generations of families. Its branches, thick and gnarled with age, stretched out like welcoming arms, creating a vast canopy of lush green leaves. This canopy was a blessing, a natural umbrella that offered cool, refreshing shade from the scorching midday sun. On hot afternoons, you'd find everyone gathered beneath it. Elders would sit on woven mats, sharing stories from their youth, their voices a gentle hum. Children, with laughter that echoed through the leaves, would play games of hide and seek among its sprawling roots. Mothers would rest, cradling their babies, lulled by the gentle rustling of the leaves, a sound like a soft, constant whisper. Even weary travelers passing through the village would find a moment of peace and respite under its generous boughs. And then there were the mangoes. Oh, the mangoes! Each summer, the tree would be laden with fruit, jewels of gold and blush red hanging from every branch. They were the sweetest, juiciest mangoes anyone had ever tasted. The villagers would gather them with care, their baskets overflowing. The fruits were a source of delight for everyone. Children would bite into the ripe flesh, sweet juice dripping down their chins, their faces beaming with pure joy. The women would make delicious jams, pickles, and cool drinks that would last them through the year. No one ever went hungry, for the tree provided in abundance, never asking for anything in return. Its generosity was as reliable as the sunrise. The tree was also a sanctuary for countless creatures. Birds of all kinds built their nests high in its branches, their morning songs serving as the village's natural alarm clock. Squirrels would chase each other up and down its sturdy trunk, their bushy tails twitching with excitement. In the quiet of the night, even a wise old owl would find a perch, its hoot a comforting sound in the darkness. The tree was a bustling metropolis of life, a complete ecosystem thriving in harmony with the villagers. It gave shade to the tired, food to the hungry, and shelter to the homeless. It was a symbol of life, of community, and of unconditional love. The villagers cherished it, cared for it, and considered it a member of their own family. It was, and always had been, the generous mango tree. One sweltering afternoon, a stranger arrived in the village. He was a woodcutter, a man whose hands were calloused and whose eyes saw not the beauty of a tree, but the value of its timber. He walked with a heavy axe slung over his shoulder, his gaze assessing everything around him. When he saw the magnificent mango tree, his eyes lit up, not with wonder, but with greed. He didn't see the shade, the fruit, or the life it supported. He saw a towering column of high-quality wood, planks and beams that could fetch a handsome price at the market in the big city. He approached the villagers resting in the shade. "What a magnificent tree!" he exclaimed, though his tone lacked the reverence the villagers felt. "Its trunk is so thick and straight. The wood must be incredibly valuable." The villagers looked at him puzzled. To them, the tree's value wasn't in its wood, but in its life, its giving spirit. The woodcutter, however, was a man of single-minded purpose. He walked right up to the great trunk and spoke to the tree as if it were an old friend, but his words were laced with desire. "O great tree, you have given so much to these people. You give them shade to rest and fruit to eat. You are truly generous." The tree, which had felt the vibrations of every word spoken beneath its branches for centuries, listened. It felt a flicker of pride at the man's acknowledgement. "But," the woodcutter continued, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "think of what more you could give. Your branches are strong, your trunk is solid. As furniture, as houses, as tools, your wood could bring comfort and wealth to so many more people. You could be even more useful, even more generous than you are now. Let me take your wood. I will sell it, and your legacy will spread far beyond this small village." The tree fell silent. For the first time in its long life, it was asked to give not its fruit or its shade, but its very self. The leaves trembled, not from the wind, but from a deep, unsettling hesitation. The idea was foreign, jarring. To give its branches would mean no more shade, no more home for the birds. To give its trunk would mean the end of its life. No more fruit for the children, no more existence. The birds in its branches seemed to sense the turmoil and fell quiet. The children playing at its roots looked up, feeling a strange tension in the air. The woodcutter's words hung in the still, hot air, a tempting poison. The tree had always found joy in giving, but this request felt different. It was a request for its end. The woodcutter saw the hesitation and pressed his advantage. "Don't you want to be remembered forever? As the tree that built a city? This is your chance for true greatness." The tree wrestled with the conflict. Was the ultimate act of giving to give away its own life? The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of an impossible choice. The great mango tree stood in profound silence, its ancient spirit in turmoil. It had spent centuries giving freely from its abundance, its leaves, its fruit, its shade. But the woodcutter's request was for its entirety, its very being. The tree considered his words. Greater generosity, a legacy beyond the village. The idea was alluring. The tree had always derived its purpose from giving. Perhaps this was the ultimate act of giving, the final, most meaningful gift it could offer. It thought of the children who would no longer have its fruit, the elders who would lose their shady resting spot, the birds who would be left homeless. A deep sadness washed through it. But then it thought of the new homes its wood could build, the warm fires it could provide on cold nights, the sturdy furniture that would support families for years. Could that new joy for others outweigh the loss for the village? Slowly, a sense of peace settled over the tree. It had lived a long, full life of service. It realized that its joy came not from having, but from giving. If giving its life meant providing for others on a grander scale, then perhaps that was its true destiny. With a gentle rustle of its leaves, as if letting out a long, deep sigh, the tree gave its silent consent. "You may take my wood. Use it well. Let it continue to bring joy and comfort to others." It seemed to whisper on the wind. The woodcutter, hearing this unspoken agreement in the sudden stillness of the tree, grinned triumphantly. He didn't understand the sacrifice. He only saw his profit. He lifted his heavy axe, its polished steel glinting in the sun. The villagers watched in horror as he swung it. The first blow landed with a sickening thud that echoed through the square, a sound that felt like a wound in the heart of the village itself. One by one, the magnificent branches, which had provided shelter and comfort for so long, were severed. They crashed to the ground, the leaves scattering like green tears. The birds shrieked and fled in a panicked flurry, circling the sky in confusion, their homes destroyed. The children began to cry, their innocent hearts breaking as they watched their beloved friend being torn apart. The elders looked on with expressions of deep sorrow, as if watching a cherished part of their own history being erased. Finally, the woodcutter turned to the main trunk. With powerful, rhythmic swings, he chopped and chopped, until with a great groan, the mighty tree shuddered and fell. It landed with a ground-shaking crash that silenced the entire village. Where a vibrant, living monument once stood, there was now only a barren, empty space, and a stump, a stark and lonely tombstone. The woodcutter worked quickly, cutting the trunk and branches into logs, loading them onto his cart. Without a backward glance at the devastated villagers or the empty sky, he led his